Welcome to Book 2 of Level 1, the I Totally Read These in School Club. Moby-Dick. Fun retelling of the classic novel by Herman Melville. Whale Mania. Part 1. Call Me Ishmael and the Escape from Boredom Plan. Alright, so let's start with the ultimate iconic line from the novel, Call Me Ishmael. That's basically our narrator introducing himself with major cryptic flair. Picture Ishmael as a semi-broke, slightly emo drifter who's so done with life on land and decides, yo, let me sign up for a whaling voyage. Because that's totally normal, right? He doesn't have some grand reason. He's not I adore marine biology. He's more I need an escape and the ocean's cheaper than therapy. Our boy Ishmael heads to New Bedford, whaling central on the East Coast, around the mid-1800s. He's looking for a ship to sign on to, but first, he needs a place to crash. The local inn is jam-packed, so he ends up rooming, aka sharing a bed old-school style, with this super buff, heavily tattooed dude named Queequeg. Initially, Ishmael's freaked because Queequeg is a savage harpooner from some Pacific island, and let's be honest, 19th century culture shock is real. But within about 24 hours, they become besties, basically soulmates. Queequeg, for his part, is stoic but super chill. He does this nightly worship thing with a small wooden idol named Yojo. At first, Ishmael's that's weird, but then he's wait, I guess all religious stuff is weird if you're not used to it. I'll just be respectful, NBD. So they bond. Ishmael's impressed with Queequeg's skill at throwing harpoons. Meanwhile, Queequeg decides Ishmael's a decent dude who's not out to scam him. Next up, the duo decides to find a whaling ship. Because apparently, that's the natural progression. Meet a tat-sleeved harpoon thrower, become blood brothers, sign up for whale hunts. They roll into Nantucket, that island that used to be whale capital of the universe. Ishmael's got minimal funds, but Queequeg's got enough savage swagger and leftover whaling coin to help them sign onto a solid vessel. While searching, they hear about this ship called the Pequod, which is said to be a total beast of a whaler, also rumored to have this intense, possibly unhinged captain named Ahab. Locals are he's missing a leg from a whale attack, so he's kind of on a personal vendetta, just FY. But do Ishmael and Queequeg run the other way? No, of course not. They're dude, that sounds epic. Let's go. They meet two part owners, Peleg and Bildad, retired whalers who are basically the HR department of the Pequod. They question Ishmael's sea experience and stare at Queequeg's tattoos, but eventually they're cool, welcome aboard. They don't sugarcoat the job either. It's dangerous as heck, but if they land a bunch of whales, the payout could be sweet. Ishmael's I'm in. Queequeg just nods, showing off his harpoon skills by literally tossing one at a piece of wood and nailing it. The stage is set. Ishmael, bored with land and craving adventure, plus Queequeg, the most badass BFF you'll ever meet, sign onto a 19th century whaling ship. Lil, do they know that the ship's captain is about to drag them on the most insane revenge mission in maritime history? Because guess what? There's a white whale out there named Moby-Dick, and he's about to star in the ultimate dude versus whale showdown. Part 2. The Pequod and the Motley Crew. So Ishmael and Queequeg report for duty on the Pequod. Right off the bat, it's clear this is not your average 9 to 5 job. The deck is busy with sailors from every corner of the globe. Africans, South Americans, Pacific Islanders, random Americans from God knows where. Everyone's got wild stories and weirder tattoos. Some are missing fingers from rope accidents. Others have pet parrots on their shoulders, not literally, but you get the vibe. Captain Ahab is nowhere to be seen at first. Mysterious much? In his absence, we meet the chief mate, Starbuck. Now, this Starbuck is not a latte brand, but a quiet, super competent Quaker from Nantucket. He's religious, cautious, and basically the voice of reason on a ship that's about to go bananas. The second mate is Stubb, who's more laid back, forever puffing on a pipe and telling jokes, even when faced with potential doom. The third mate is Flask, a short, fiery dude who's hunt whales, get money, no big deal. Queequeg isn't the only harpooner. There's Tashtego, a Native American from Martha's Vineyard, and Digga, a giant African. All are absolute beasts at chucking harpoons. Ishmael's role? more like an ordinary sailor or greenhorn, plus he's the hidden MVP narrator type, scribbling notes about everything that goes down. They set sail on Christmas Day, which is super weird and kinda ominous. Ishmael's like, ooh, symbolic. They leave Nantucket's harbor behind, and the open ocean wraps them up in days that blend together. Rope coiling, deck swabbing, crow's nest watch, and the occasional scuffle among the multinational crew. Meanwhile, everyone's whispering about Captain Ahab. Some say he's below deck, stomping around on his peg leg, refusing to come up till the perfect dramatic moment. Weeks go by. Suddenly, one morning at dawn, Captain Ahab finally appears on deck. The man is tall, scarred, with a peg leg made out of whalebone. Like, that's some next level, I'm not over my trauma flex. His face is etched with a gnarly lightning bolt-looking scar that rumor says runs down his entire body. He paces the deck, using his whalebone leg to tap a weird rhythm. He's clearly got a major chip on his shoulder, and that chip's name might be Moby-Dick. The crew stares in awe and a little fear. Starbuck tries to do the formal good morning, Captain, but Ahab's not about small talk. He's always gazing at the horizon like he can sense the big white whale out there. There's an electricity in the air, a sense that this voyage isn't just about filling barrels with whale oil. Ishmael feels it too. Something big is going down. Sure enough, the next day, Ahab calls the entire crew together. He stands up high, brandishes a gold doubloon, a fancy Spanish gold coin, and is like, "Listen up, slackers. First person to spot the white whale, Moby-Dick, gets this coin." But guess what? We're not just whaling for profit. We're out here for revenge. The men are like, what? But they're also kinda stoked at the potential bonus. Starbuck looks super uncomfortable because whaling should be business, not personal vendettas. But it's clear who's calling the shots. The mania is about to begin. Part 3. Ahab's Obsession and the White Whale's Legend. So, if you're wondering why Ahab's got a peg leg and a beef with a white whale, here's the backstory. Apparently, Moby-Dick, a legendary albino sperm whale with a freakish size and attitude, chomped off Ahab's leg on a previous voyage. Instead of being like, "Whales do what whales do," Ahab took it personally. He's all, "That whale attacked me, and now I'm out for cosmic vengeance." He's convinced Moby-Dick is some monstrous incarnation of evil that must be destroyed. Normal captains chase whales for money. Ahab's chasing this one out of pride and rage. Starbuck, the rational bro, is basically like, "This is madness. We have a job to do, which is to fill the ship's hold with oil from any whales we find, not chase one random sperm whale across the entire ocean." But Ahab's having none of that. He's like, "We'll hunt other whales too if we must, but the big target is Moby-Dick." He's giving major, "I'll burn the world if I have to" vibes, which is not exactly comforting to a crew that depends on the sea's mercy. But you know what? Sailors are kinda weird. The promise of the gold doubloon is a decent motivator, plus many are curious about the mythic beast. Some have heard rumors of whalers who encountered Moby-Dick and got their boats smashed to splinters. The whale's apparently unstoppable, with a spout that looks like it could tear the sky in half. Ishmael's both fascinated and freaked out. Meanwhile, Queequeg just keeps sharpening his harpoon like, "Bring it on." As they sail deeper into whaling grounds, the Pequod does the normal whaling routine. Lookouts in the masthead scanning for spouts, lowering whaleboats when they spot pods, harpooneers hooking whales so the crew can haul them aboard and boil down the blubber into oil. It's a super messy, smelly job. Imagine blood and chunks of whale flesh all over the deck, plus you're living with like 100 sweaty guys for months. Not exactly a spa vacation. Between hunts, the crew swaps sea tales. Ishmael, a total geek for random knowledge, starts explaining everything from the different species of whales to the entire process of turning them into lamp oil. In the original novel, Melville goes on epic tangents about whale anatomy, how to measure their heads, how to cut up the blubber, etc. We're skipping the extended lecture series here for comedic sanity. All the while, Ahab rarely sleeps. He paces at night, sometimes holding secret meetings with a mysterious, scar-faced dude named Fedallah and his group of dark shadow sailors like Ahab's personal hype men. The normal mates, Starbuck, Stub, Flask, are freaked out. They suspect the captain is literally making some unholy pact to find Moby-Dick. Fidela is an eerie, silent figure who claims to have visions about the whale's destiny. Big yikes. Starbuck thinks about confronting Ahab, maybe even staging a mutiny for the good of the ship. But Ahab is so intense, it's like facing a tornado with a butter knife. So the Pequod sails on, deeper into the watery wilderness, guided by one man's thirst for revenge. Part 4. Whale hunts, sea adventures, and philosophical chit-chat. Life aboard the Pequod isn't all gloom and doom. Sure, there's Ahab's obsession looming overhead, but day to day, the crew's gotta hustle. They spot pods of whales from time to time. Not the white whale, just regular sperm whales. Then it's game on. They lower the smaller whaleboats with Starbuck, Stub, or Flask in command, plus a harpooner in the bow. Ishmael often tags along with whichever boat can fit him. Those hunts are chaotic. They chase after the whales. The harpooner stands up in the boat, arms his harpoon. The rowers are straining at the oars, cursing the waves. When they're close enough, the harpooner hurls the spear. If it hits, the whale might take off, dragging the boat at high speed in what they call a Nantucket sleigh reed. Eventually, if they land enough blows, the whale dies, and they tow its massive carcass back to the ship. Then it's hours or days of processing the blubber on deck, boiling it into casks. This routine is physically brutal, but the crew's used to it. Stub cracks jokes throughout. Dago flexes his giant arms. Tashtego does some graceful harpoon hurling, and Queequeg shows off insane upper body strength. Ishmael tries not to puke from the smell. Meanwhile, Ahab mostly stays on deck, scanning the horizon for a sign of that singular white leviathan. He only shows mild interest in the regular whale kills, unless he thinks Moby might be among the pod. Then he's borderline psychotic about it. Between hunts, the nights can be peaceful, starry skies, the ocean lit by moonlight. Ishmael's mind wanders to philosophical stuff. The nature of the universe, the meaning of the whale, how puny humans are compared to the sea. He has these big existential moments, which in the original novel lead to entire chapters about random topics like, is the whale a fish or mammal? Or, why do we chase something that can kill us? We'll just say, Ishmael loves a good deep thought. He's like your friend who tries to interpret life's meaning after 2 cups of coffee at 2 a.m. Meanwhile, Stubbs over there literally telling a pipe joke to Tashtego. Contrasts. The Pequod crosses paths with other whaling ships sometimes. They'll exchange gams, basically boat-to-boat gossip sessions. Ahab only cares about one question. Yo, have you seen the white whale? Some captains are like, nah, sorry, but we did catch a big gray one. Others share rumors. We heard from a Spanish whaler that Moby-Dick was last seen near the Indian Ocean. Each new rumor only fuels Ahab's mania. He starts heading the Pequod to every rumored location, ignoring what might be better whaling territory. Starbuck quietly seethes. This is not how you run a profitable voyage. But the crew, let's be real, is half entranced by Ahab's intensity. They see the fire in his eyes, the vow he made to kill Moby-Dick. Some might think it's insane, but they also want to witness something legendary. Ishmael's spooked yet intrigued. Deep down he wonders, is Moby-Dick just a whale, or does it symbolize something cosmic we can't even fathom? That question's about to get tested in real time. Part 5. Storms, omens, and the price of obsession. As the Pequod cruises further, they hit storms, like big, nasty tempests that make the ship pitch and roll so hard you'd think it's auditioning for a theme park ride. Lightning crashes, waves loom. The sails flap like they're about to tear off. In one wild scene, a lightning storm hits the ship's masts, and the tips literally glow with this eerie electrical fire called St. Elmo's fire. Everyone's freaked. Ahab's on deck, ranting about how these signs are pushing him onward, as if the heavens themselves are fueling his vendetta. Starbuck sees it differently, more like a warning. Dude, maybe the cosmos is saying, turn back or you're doomed. But you think Ahab's gonna listen? No. He's fully in I'll ride the lightning to the gates of hell mode. Meanwhile, Fedela, Ahab's cryptic sidekick, spouts off some gnarly prophecies. Something about how Ahab can't die until he sees 2 hearses on the sea, which makes 0 sense, and that Fedela himself will die before Ahab, but Ahab won't see his own funeral. Everyone's basically, this is whack. But Ahab's like, cool story, let's keep going. They keep running into other ships. Some are battered from storms. Others have horrifying tales about Moby-Dick. One whaler's captain lost his arm. Another's entire boat got wrecked. Ahab's like, tell me more, yes, I feed on your traumatic stories, while Starbuck is about to tear his hair out thinking, we're heading straight for doom. Queequeg has a near-death experience from a random fever. Convinced he's about to die, he calmly builds himself a coffin, yup, that's how they rolled back then. Then he recovers at the last minute, so now they've got a coffin lying around that eventually gets repurposed as a lifebuoy, super cheerful. Ishmael's like, that's just a normal day on the Pequod. A few more hunts happen, but they feel overshadowed by the white whale quest. At times, Starbuck contemplates confronting Ahab, maybe even pulling a weapon on him to protect everyone from madness. But Ahab's got that aura of unstoppable determination. Starbuck can't bring himself to commit mutiny, plus the crew might back Ahab anyway. Through all this, Ahab does show flickers of humanity. One day, he gazes at the horizon and laments the life he's missed on land, like a wife waiting for him, a kid he barely knows. But then he steels himself, like, no, I must kill the whale that took my leg. That's my destiny. Ishmael, watching from the sidelines, is equal parts disturbed and enthralled. In his mind, this is about more than a single whale. It's about how far a person will go when consumed by hate or obsession. And as far as Ishmael can tell, Ahab's prepared to go right over the edge. Part 6. The whale spotted. Let the chase begin. Finally, after who knows how many months at sea, the big moment arrives. A lookout shouts from the masthead, "Thar she blows." But this time, it's not the usual excitement of a normal whale. The lookout's practically losing it, yelling something about a huge, ghostly white spout. Ahab bolts out of his cabin like a man possessed. He grabs his telescope, scans the horizon, and yes, there it is. A monstrous white hump, a spout that lingers ominously. No doubt. It's Moby-Dick. All the whaleboats get readied. Ahab's personal boat is lowered. He hops in with Fedallah and a select crew, while Starbuck, Stubb, and Flask each lead their own boats. Ishmael's in somebody's boat, heart-pounding. They row like demons, cutting through the waves to close the distance. Moby-Dick is ominously calm at first, just cruising. But whales aren't clueless. This giant beast has a sixth sense. The moment they get close, he basically thrashes the water with his massive tail, sending waves that nearly flip the boats. Fedallah tries to harpoon Moby, but the whale ducks under, reappearing behind them. Ahab, unafraid, stands in the prow, screaming curses at the whale. It's absolutely bananas. This huge creature is bigger than anything else in the sea, and yet Ahab's convinced he can take it down. Moby-Dick smashes one of the other whaleboats to smithereens, hurling sailors into the ocean. Thankfully, they get rescued by the other boats. This first day's chase ends with no victory. Moby-Dick disappears into the deep, leaving the Pequod's whaleboats battered and the crew trembling. But Ahab? He's more hyped than ever. Starbuck begs him, "Captain, let's be rational. We nearly lost men." Ahab basically growls, "We do it again tomorrow." "I won't stop." Day 2 dawns, same deal. The crew sights Moby-Dick again. The whaleboats set out. It's like round 2 of an epic boss fight. This time, Ahab actually gets a harpoon into the whale's flank. Moby-Dick thrashes, blood mixing with the foam, but it's not enough to slow him down. He charges straight at Ahab's boat, flips it like a toy in a kiddie pool. People go flying. Fedallah vanishes beneath the waves. Ishmael's not sure if he's dead or alive. The surviving rowers scramble for their lives. Ahab is pulled out of the water by another boat. Moby-Dick once again escapes, leaving everyone battered and exhausted. By now, it's super clear, this whale is not messing around. The Pequod's deck is chaos. Men nurse bruises, broken ribs, near drownings. But Ahab stares out at the horizon, refusing to relent. Meanwhile, those cryptic prophecies about Fedallah dying first and weird hearse signs bubble up in the crew's memory. Starbuck's face is pure dread. You can sense a final confrontation is coming, and it's going to be savage. Part 7. The final showdown, death and destruction. On the third day of the chase, the tension is nuclear. Everyone's on edge, battered and sleepless. Ahab rouses the crew at dawn with the news. Moby-Dick's back. Sure enough, the white whale surfaces once more. It's like the ocean itself is giving them this final chance. Ahab clambers into his boat yet again, face twisted with grim determination. Starbuck stands on deck, practically pleading, "Captain, this is madness. We could sail away, live to whale another day." Ahab points his whalebone leg at Starbuck like a teacher scolding a rowdy kid, too late to turn back. Ishmael, roped into a whaleboat, can't believe he's about to do this again. They approach Moby-Dick. The whale, scarred from harpoons, surfaces with an almost vengeful flick of his tail. Ahab hurls a new harpoon roaring, "To the last I grapple with thee." The harpoon hits. Moby-Dick thrashes. In the swirl of waves and foam, something happens that looks like it's from an action movie on steroids. Moby-Dick rams Ahab's boat, and in the churning water, we see Fidela's corpse lashed to the whale's flank by tangled harpoon lines, fulfilling the prophecy that Fidela would die first. The crew freaks out, but Ahab is beyond caring. He's locked on the whale like it's his destiny. Now Moby-Dick turns his sights on the Pequod itself. The giant whale speeds toward the ship, smashing into its hull. The timber cracks with a hideous sound. Water floods in. The crew on board scramble, but there's no saving it. The Pequod begins to sink fast. Starbuck's trying to keep order, but it's basically Titanic 1850s whaler edition. No string quartet though, just panic. Ahab, from his whaleboat, sees his beloved ship going down. For a split second, he hesitates. Then, with one final attempt, he stands up, tries to hurl another harpoon at Moby. But the whale dives, tangling the harpoon line around Ahab's neck. In a horrifying moment, Ahab is yanked out of the boat and pulled under. That's it. Captain Ahab is gone, drowned or crushed, fulfilling every dire omen that's been piling up. Moby-Dick disappears into the deep, triumphant or simply indifferent. The Pequod is fully swallowed by the ocean, taking most of the crew with it. The whaleboats flounder in the swirling vortex of the sinking ship. Spars and casks and random debris float everywhere. Ishmael, in the chaos, is thrown clear into the ocean. He clings to the only thing that keeps him afloat, the newly repurposed coffin that Queequeg had built. Dark irony, right? As everything vanishes beneath the waves, the last we see is Ishmael bobbing alone, drifting in an endless sea of wreckage. Moby-Dick is nowhere to be found. The white whale's final act? Or maybe just another day for him. For the ill-fated Pequod, it's the end of the line. Part 8. Ishmael's survival and the aftermath. So now our man Ishmael is floating in the middle of the ocean, holding onto a coffin-turned-lifebuoy, which is basically the universe's cruel sense of humor at maximum volume. The swirling water calms after a while, and Ishmael's left with nothing but his thoughts, the scorching sun, and the taste of salt. He's in shock, obviously, because the ship he spent months aboard, all his buddies, especially Queequeg, have presumably gone down. He can't even begin to process that Captain Ahab's monomania just led, literally, to the entire ship's destruction. Days, or maybe it just feels like days, pass. Ishmael dozes in and out of consciousness, expecting to die. Then, out of nowhere, rescue. Another whaling ship named the Rachel, which ironically had crossed paths with the Pequod not long before, sails by and spots him. They haul Ishmael aboard, effectively saving the lone survivor. Lucky, right? The Rachel's captain is searching desperately for his own lost whaleboat, which went missing chasing Moby-Dick. He's heartbroken, hoping to find his missing son. But instead, he finds Ishmael, the final testament to the Pequod's doom. It's a bittersweet rescue. Ishmael has no easy answers, only a horrifying story that's going to become the legend we're reading about. In the original novel, Ishmael basically says, "And I alone am escaped to tell thee." It's a huge biblical reference, which is Melville's jam, but let's be real in our dorm lounge retelling. Ishmael's just that one guy who stumbled out of the worst group project meltdown in history with a battered notebook of how it all went down. Looking back, it's pretty clear the moral of the story might be something like, don't let obsession consume you, or Mother Nature doesn't care about your vendetta, or if your boss starts ranting about revenge on a giant whale, maybe find a new job. All are valid. Ahab's entire crew got pulled into his single-minded quest for payback, and it ended in a watery grave for nearly all of them. Except Ishmael, who floats away on a coffin because, sure, life's messed up like that. Once rescued, presumably Ishmael eventually makes it back to civilization, writes down everything, and that's how we get this sprawling, philosophical, occasionally bizarre novel about a big white whale and a captain with a peg leg. So if you've ever heard someone use the phrase white whale to describe, like, an unattainable goal, now you know where that comes from. It's the granddaddy of all impossible obsessions. Wow, you've harpooned your way through Moby-Dick like a true captain of the literary seas. Awesome job. Next up, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Think haunted house meets love story, with Jane schooling everyone in survival, sass, and style. Mr. Rochester better watch out. Jane's about to steal the show. Also, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay in the loop for all our epic content. And guess what? A new fun retelling audiobook drops every single weekday.